Cool. So it's 6-1 guys, we can start. So firstly, good evening. Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back to your own scholars channel. I think almost after 5-6 days. So I'm hoping everybody is doing well. Yeah. So cool. So that being said, we've officially done with chapter 1 ka syllabus a couple of days, sorry, term 1 ka syllabus a couple of days back, but we've skipped chapter 3 in between for some obvious reasons. So I thought we'll complete that chapter 3 and then move on to the term 2 syllabus, right? So for that reason, we'll be dealing with chapter 3 in detail over the next couple of sessions. Yes, so today is going to be the part 1 video for chapter 3, which is titled as An Empire Across 3 Continents, which mainly deals with Roman Empire. Right, so that's the heads up for today's class. Anyways, a couple of you are already here, so good evening everyone who are already here. Namit is back. Hi Namit, good evening. Okay, I'm just hoping within the next couple of minutes other people will join as well. But in the meanwhile, I'll just complete the introductory part. So, as most of you all know, my name is Nikitha and I'm the history educator here at Unacademy Scholars channel. And a little bit about my educational qualifications per se. I have recently graduated from Ashoka University with a major in history and a minor in political science. So I take classes for both 11th and 12th here. Moving quickly to a couple of Unacademy's plus and iconic features and their pricing. Starting off with plus features. So you can actually sit at your own houses and learn live from the comfort of your own houses. And then there's unlimited access to so many courses, and these are taught by top educators of India, and all of them are available on one single platform. There are regular doubt clearing sessions, answer writing sessions. Along with that, there's also provision for practice tests and live test series. There's exhaustive coverage of syllabus, and mentorship is given to you, guidance is given to you, and finally there's also access to study materials, which are usually in the form of PDFs and are highly helpful during revision times. So those are a couple of features. What the pricing for plus is as follows. So you have 6 ranges of subscriptions, right? It starts with a 6-month subscription and goes on till almost 2 years, right? So the pricing you can see on the left side of the screen, like these ones, are the actual prices. But if you use the code, which is TUM10, you'll be basically given a 10% off, and these are the post discounted prices you can see on the right side of the screen. Yeah, so just have a look at them and feel free to go ahead with whichever one you feel comfortable. And nextly, moving on to iconic, here the features are even better and greater than plus, in the sense that you'll be given personal mentorship. There are live doubt solving sessions, there are weekly reports, along with parent connect and study planners are also provided. So those are a couple of features. When it comes to pricing, the durations are of 9 types here, starting from 3 months to almost 2 years, 48 months, right? So again, the same thing. The prices on the left are pre-discounted. If you use the code, which is TUM10, you'll be getting a 10% off, and the prices on the right are post-discounted prices. So have a look at them and make your choice. Okay, that being said, we'll quickly move on to Unacademy's Combat Scholarship Test. As most of you all know, it's a scholarship test, and the format is as such that you will be given 60 minutes to answer 30 questions, and tests are both in Hindi and English. And these are conducted every Sunday for you guys at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So the link is in the description below for this. Go check that out and enroll yourselves and take part in as many quizzes as possible. And there's something called as Bugs Bounty, which is Unacademy's special feature. So basically it's an opportunity for you learners out there to report any inappropriate content in the video, and you can even claim your prize for reporting that particular issue. And there's a form in the description below of this video. Using that form, you can basically report any sort of inappropriate content. So that's Bugs Bounty. Okay. Cool. That being said, I think we can quickly dive into today's class without any further delay. Also, this is the chapter which y'all have done at some point of time. So, but still, if y'all have any doubts in between, just stop me there and feel free to ask. Yeah. Anyways, I will start. So, as obviously I've told in the beginning, the main focus of this chapter will be to deal with the Roman Empire, right? Roman Empire is one such name we've heard right from our childhood, right? Like, it's huge, it had all of these very powerful rulers, it extended over very large territory, right? These are some of the features which we already know related to the Roman Empire. So we'll talk about them in detail in the next couple of sessions while dealing with this chapter. Yeah. So yeah, like basic information, right? Roman Empire stretched over large territories, and in order to estimate how large it was, or roughly to give you a sketch or an idea, it spread over almost modern day Europe, right? The whole of modern day Europe, the whole of modern day North Africa, and also the large part of Fertile Crescent. So just imagine the world map in your mind, then just locate where Europe, North Africa, and Fertile Crescent are. All of these regions were ruled by Roman Empire right from the beginning, right? So that is where the power of the Roman Empire lies. Also, like for people who don't know what Fertile Crescent is, it's basically the present day's Middle Eastern regions, right? Covering Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine. Sometimes Cyprus is also added, right? So all of these countries together formed the Fertile Crescent. It's basically in the shape of a crescent, right? Or to make you better understand, it's in the shape of a boomerang. Yeah. So that's how the Fertile Crescent got its name, because it's in the shape of a boomerang, right? So that's the areas that the Roman Empire covered. So in this particular chapter, we'll be looking at different aspects of this empire, right? What is the polity? What is the economy? How did the society function? Yeah, were there any differences between people in the society, right? We'll look at all of these different factors which shaped Roman Empire. So that's the gist of the chapter. And definitely we'll come across different aspects, right? Number one of them is it has a wealth of local cultures and languages, as in it is so diversified, right? It's not just one culture, it's not just Greek or Latin. There are French peoples, Spanish people, Italian, English, like all of these different European people who were a part of Roman Empire, who spoke different languages, who had different cultures, right? So all of these were a part of Roman Empire. And then you'll also find out that the status or the position of women in the empire, it's much, much stronger, right? Especially in legal terms, women had so much authority, or women had so much power when compared to the position of women in other countries even today, right? If you look at Afghanistan, or if you look at any other Muslim dominated countries, even in the 21st century, you'll see that women are not given a respectable position, right? But back in the Roman Empire, women were highly, highly respected. Yeah. So that is one positive factor, right? That doesn't mean it did not have any negative aspects. It definitely did have, especially in regards to labor, right? Labor was exploited thoroughly. There was slave labor there, right? People were forced to work, but they were not given wages. They were not given salaries. Yeah, so that's what slave labor is. And lastly, so many people did not even have freedom to do whatever they want in life, right? So a couple of good things, a couple of bad things, all of them summed up together form the Roman Empire, right? So it was there, right? It was there right before the Christ was born, like starting just before the Christ was born. That's when the empire started, right? And it was almost there till 5th century. Yeah, till 5th century it was there. Even after 5th it was there, but it started like slowly losing its power. Yes. So what happened in the 5th century, right? The empire fell apart in the west. Again, whenever you think of Roman Empire, roughly just divided into two halves, right? The western part and the eastern part. The rough demarcation in your heads can be somewhere near the Mediterranean region, Mediterranean Sea, right? All the regions east of the Mediterranean Sea constitutes the eastern half of the empire, and all regions west of the Mediterranean Sea are the western half of the empire, right? So that is the basic division, like it's just rough division in your head, right? So what happened after the 5th century? The western half started becoming weaker and weaker. It almost fell apart, but the eastern half still remained intact. It was still prosperous, right? And as you might learn in the 4th chapter regarding all of these central Islamic lands, coming up of caliphate, yeah, like all of these concepts we've learned in chapter 4, right? So all of these people, they established their power based on the eastern half of the Roman Empire's prosperity, right? So just after the eastern half of the empire was falling down in the 7th, 8th centuries, based on that regime or based on that apparatus, the caliphate grew, right? So just look at the continuity. Yeah. So that's a basic introduction to the chapter, right? Any questions, guys? Just put them down in the chat box. We can quickly answer them. That's the basic introduction. Now we'll quickly move on to talking about the sources, right? Like how did we get to know the information about Roman Empire? So to start off, Roman historians, like historians basically working on the Roman Empire, they have n number of sources, like rich collection of sources, right? And broadly they have categorized whatever sources they have into 3 types or 3 groups, right? The first is the texts, textual sources, yeah. The second are the documents. We'll see what documents are and what constituted documents. The third is the material remains, right? Like all of these archaeological stuff like coins, inscriptions and all. Yeah. We'll look at each of them in detail, but remember that the broad 3 classifications are text, documents and material remains. Yeah. So what are textual sources, right? Textual sources basically include histories of period written by contemporaries. People who ever used to normally write about the society, economy, people, basically writing down on a piece of paper. Yeah. So those textual sources basically included annals, letters, speeches, sermons, laws and so on. All of these were recorded down on a paper, right? So all of these constitute the textual sources, right? So the next group of sources is documents, right? So what did documents consist of? They consisted mainly of 2, right? The first one is inscriptions and the second is papyri. We'll look at what they are, right? So inscriptions, as most of us know, are writings done on either of the hard materials, either on rocks, either on stones or some other pillars or hard objects, right? So inscriptions were basically cut on stone. Yeah. So because stones are harder, because they can, what do we say? They can withstand the ravages of time. They are still there, right? They are still surviving. Even if you go visit like Roman Empire, like the Greece places and all right now, you'll basically find all of these inscriptions in Greek and Latin. Yeah. So any questions till here? Okay, Siddhant is here. Good evening, Siddhant. Yes, Siddhant, definitely. Thanks for the suggestion. We can do that. Yeah. Um. Okay, so that's inscriptions, right? The first part of the documentary sources. The second part of the documentary sources are papyri. So again, papyri is already the term which we have encountered in one of the previous chapters, right? Where we were talking about all of these, how China was the biggest producer of paper, right? So in that context, we've talked about papyri. If any of y'all remember, otherwise, if y'all don't, I'll explain it again. So no worries. So papyri is a material, but where is it coming from? It is coming from a plant called as papyrus. Yeah, so the spelling is here. It's papyrus. So it's not grown everywhere in the world, but it specially is grown on along the banks of river Nile, which is in present day Egypt, right? So by cutting off the papyrus tree, you process the leaves and branches, and then finally a material is made, which is papyri, yeah, on which you basically write whatever you want to. So that is another kind of documentary source which was very widely used in everyday affairs of the Roman Empire. So they are still there. So historians have read these papyri, inscriptions, textual sources, and that's how they reconstructed the Roman history. Okay. Any questions still here, guys? I mean, it's fairly simple. We've just dealt with the introduction, and we've talked about two of the major important sources, which are texts and documents, right? So we still have another source to deal with, which is material remains. But before going ahead, if you all have any questions, just ask me in the chat box. Okay. Thanks for the compliment, Siddhant. That means a lot. Thank you. Okay. If there are no questions, then we can go ahead. Cool. So another point regarding the papyrus and documental remains, right? So all of these contracts, accounts, letters, and official documents, as I was telling you, papyrus was very widely used for daily affairs, right? All of these contracts, letters, and all, they can be found on papyrus even now, and historians have restored them, right? And they also like published some of these papyri. Yeah, again, there's a set of different scholars who are experts in dealing with papyri, called as papyrologists, right? Not much important, but like just for your external knowledge, papyrologists are people who deal with papyri. Yeah, so they have even like published some of the accounts of the papyri. Yeah, so okay, that's the second point, right? Which are documentary remains, documents. The last of the sources we have is material remains, also called as archaeological remains, right? These are these are a range of varieties, right? They are very wide assortment of items, usually discovered by the archaeologists, yeah, while they are doing some sort of field surveys or while they are doing some sort of excavations. All of these archaeologists find so many different items, right? These items include buildings, like buildings are not still intact, but like ruins of the buildings, right? Or some sort of monuments or some other different structures like temples, churches, mosques, whatever. And then there's pottery, there are coins, there are mosaics, even entire landscapes. So these are all different material remains which are very, very helpful for archaeologists to reconstruct Roman Empire. Yeah, so that way they're very important again. So each of these sources, right, like be it textual sources, be it material sources, be it documents, whatever it is, they give us some information about the past, but they do not give the entire picture, because somewhere some part of the information is missing, right? Like we don't have some information about it. So sometimes it's not able to reconstruct the entire history of an empire, even though we have so many sources. Yeah. And how well you make use of the sources, of the available sources, depends on the historian's talent or skill. Yeah. If he's good at his work, he'll get so much information, like he'll read between the lines, or he'll be able to protrude so much information. If he's not so good, then he might miss on certain things, right? So all of this depends on historian's skill. Okay, we have Ayushi back. Hi Ayushi. Cool. Oh, today is Dhanteras. Okay. Thanks, Ayushi. Wish you the same. Cool. Guys, any questions still here? Because we've officially done with the sources. We'll be talking about some other things in the next slide, right? So regarding the sources and introduction, if you all have any questions, just ask them in the chat box. If you all don't have any, then we can go ahead. What is caliphate? Right. So Siddhant, regarding the caliphate, it usually comes in your next chapter, which is the Central Islamic lands, right? But just to give you a brief definition as to what a caliphate is. So basically, after Prophet Muhammad dies, right? He dies somewhere in the year 632 AD. So once he dies, there are different people coming to the power, claiming that they are the successors of Prophet Muhammad, right? For example, Umar, for example, Uthman, Ali, all these are different caliphs. So basically speaking, caliphs are nothing but the heads of the Islamic empire, right? They claim to be the head of all the Muslims in the world. Yeah, so whatever they tell, that is the final word. Yeah, basically something like monarchs or rulers, but they just have a different name, right? They are caliphs, and these people will rule over a certain territory, right? They have different regions under their control. That region is called as caliphate. Yeah. So again, to break this even into simpler terms, just think of king and kingdom, right? King is the ruler of the kingdom. Just like that, caliph is the head of the caliphate. Caliphate is the region, caliph is the person, right? So I'm hoping that's clear, Siddhant. If you did not understand, just tell me, I'll explain it in some other way. Yeah. Okay, you understood. Cool. Okay, then we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so this Roman Empire, or basically back in those times, along with the Roman Empire, there was some other empire also which was very, very powerful, right? So what is that empire? It was the Iranian Empire, right? So Rome and Iran are two very, very famous empires back in those times. Yeah. So what all regions did they rule over, right? Basically the same regions. The whole of Europe, the whole of North Africa, the whole of Middle East, right? So right before the Christ was born, from that time till almost the middle of the 7th century, for almost 7 centuries, these two empires have dominated the entire Marsland, right? So, and those two are Rome and Iran. Again, in this chapter, we'll only be dealing with Rome in particular, but Iran is also grateful and powerful, but we won't be looking at Iran in this class, as in like in 11th class. Probably in future sometime you'll learn about Iran, right? So, but like here and there, Iranian references will be coming, but mainly the focus is Rome for us, right? So, obviously, when there are only two superpowers, obviously there'll be enemies, right? They are rivals. They kept fighting against each other. There are so many conflicts between these two groups, right? Much of the history, they have been fighting against each other all the time. Yeah, obviously, like, why will they fight? To expand their territory, right? They wanted so much of land under their control. They are greedy for power, and therefore they fought against each other. Also, they just adjacent to each other, right? Like, again, just go back to one of the maps in the textbook or just Google them. By now you must have like a mind map in your head, right? Because we're dealing with world history, and that's why having a map in your head is very, very important. So just imagine like the Roman Empire constituting the whole of Europe, right? And then adjacent to it, towards its right, is the Iranian Empire, right? So they just like side by side. So the only thing which is separating these two empires is a narrow strip of land, like a very thin piece of land that ran along the river Euphrates. Yeah, so river Euphrates is again very important. So just imagine this Euphrates river is the only thing which separates Iranian Empire and Roman Empire. Yeah, so that's the demarcation. Again, in this chapter we'll only be looking at Rome, with sometimes referring to the Iran Empire, right? So that's that's what this chapter is going to deal with. Any questions till here, guys? Okay, cool. If there are no questions, then we can go ahead, I guess. Guys, at any point of time you feel that I'm going at a faster pace or you'll have any questions, just stop me and ask. Yeah. Also, like, this chapter is relatively easier because we have done like tougher chapters like Central Islamic lands, right? That is like one hell of a chapter. It needed so much analysis and so much time to understand. But compared to that, this is much, much easier. So that way you'll are sorted. Yeah. Cool. I think we can go ahead. So again, just to like give you like a broad geographical idea as to regarding the continents of Europe and Africa, right? Again, just imagine the world map in your head, locate Europe, locate Africa, or if you have a textbook in front of you, open that and see where Europe and Africa are, right? So obviously they are separated by a sea that stretches all the way from Spain in the west to Syria in the east, right? So again, look at all these countries, then you will find a river, a sea which runs from Spain to Syria, right? All of that water body in between these two nations is called the Mediterranean Sea, which is very, very important and is often regarded as the heart of Rome's empire. Again, this can be a question that can be asked in the exam, saying which sea is considered as the heart of Rome's empire? The answer is Mediterranean Sea, right? Why is it so important again? Because via the Mediterranean Sea, so much trade used to happen. Imports, exports, external trade, internal trade, so much trade used to happen, and there was so much of money and revenue to the empire, right? So obviously it is an important strategic place. Yeah, so that's Mediterranean Sea. Okay. Siddhant has a comment to make. It's a hard chapter, but it becomes easier after understanding. Yeah, fair enough, Siddhant. I would say that, but in order for you to register that chapter, it'll take at least 3-4 revisions. Right? So the point is the amount of time you're going to put into studying the chapter. Yeah? I mean, fairly simple. Like once you get a hold of it, once you understand the concepts, it's fairly easier. Yeah, but you need to revise it at least 3-4 times. Okay, cool. Like we might do a couple of revisions on that chapter, so like don't worry. Anyways, we're talking about Mediterranean Sea, often referred to as the heart of Rome's empire, right? So Roman Empire basically dominated this Mediterranean Sea, right? And also the regions surrounding this sea in every direction possible, like north as well as south. Like whatever regions are located around the Mediterranean Sea, all of these were dominated by Rome, right? That is why Rome was prosperous. All of that revenue, all of that income coming from the trade happening in the Mediterranean Sea is coming to the Roman Empire, right? That's why it's very, very prosperous. So again, right, like just to geographical important locations, not much necessary, but like anyways, I'll say that to the north, right, to the north of this Mediterranean Sea, the Roman Empire boundaries were formed by two great rivers. One is Rhine and the other is Danube, right? And to the south, it also had two rivers. It had a huge desert called the Sahara Desert in the African continent, right? So these are some of the important boundaries which mark the Roman Empire near the Mediterranean Sea, right? So this whole of vast stretch is called as the Roman Empire, right? So on the other side, there's another important rival, right, which is Iran or Iranian Empire. It controlled the whole area of south of the Caspian Sea. Again, go back to the map, locate where Caspian Sea is, right? So the whole area towards the south of Caspian Sea, which is the eastern Arabia, right, like Saudi Arabia, Oman, Syria, and all of these places, and also large parts of Afghanistan, right? All of these places were controlled by Iran, right? So it's almost like we had two superpowers who divided the whole of the world, right? They were that powerful, right? Because this huge empire's world has never seen in the past. The first time that it came across any empire this big is Roman Empire and then the Iranian Empire, right? So these are like two great superpowers. Yeah. Okay. So that's about the basic, in like whatever we're dealing with till now is not yet the details of the empire. We're just looking at geographical locations or sources or introductions, right? So till here, if you get a brief understanding, then it will be easier to understand the remaining chapter, right? So any questions guys till here, please let me know in the chat box. We'll quickly clear them up. Okay. Okay, Ayushi says clear. Thanks for responding, Ayushi. I'm hoping everybody else understood as well. So that being said, we can quickly move on to the next slide, which is, or next sub-theme, let's say, which is titled as the Early Empire, right? So again, what is Early Empire? What did it constitute of? What are the provisions of it? Or what are the mechanisms of the empire, right? We'll be looking at all of these questions and try to answer them in the next couple of slides, right? So the Roman Empire, right? Basically the empire we're talking about all this while. So it can be broadly divided into two phases. Yeah. So the first phase can be called as the early empire and the second phase can be called as the late empire, right? Why? Like, what is the demarcation here again? Basically, consider the landmark as 3rd century. Yeah. So again, like, what do we see here? Anything before the 3rd century is referred to as early empire. Anything after the 3rd century is referred to as late empire. Right? So 3rd century is the demarcation point. So remember that, guys, very, very important. Yeah. So the same thing, right? Before 3rd and after 3rd, early and late. So a major, so that is about the Roman Empire, right? Just keep that in mind, early and late, right? So the next 2 points of the slide will be basically talking about the differences between Roman and Iranian. Yeah. So what is that one difference? Like, are there any differences or are there any similarities between Roman and Iranian Empire? Yes, absolutely there are. And out of those differences, one major difference is um, Roman Empire is basically culturally more diverse, yeah, than that of Iran. Again, like the same point I made a couple of slides earlier, right? Roman Empire had so many people who are diversified in terms of customs, traditions, languages, right? All these French, English, Italian, Spanish people, like Dutch people, yeah? So many different languages and cultures. It's so much more diverse. But when it comes to Iranian Empire, most of the people had a Iranian descent. The population was largely Iranian, right? So that is the basic difference between Roman and Iranian empires, right? So that's that. Ronak is here with us. Hi, Ronak. Okay. If there are no questions, then I can go ahead, guys. Ronak has something to ask. Yes, Ronak, please type that down. Sahil is back. Hi, Sahil. Good evening. It's good to see you after so many days. Ronak, I've already said this to you yesterday. It's confidential. It's not supposed to be said it out. So, no, I can't say that out. Okay, in the meanwhile, Siddhant has a question. What is the meaning of mosaic? Right? So, okay, if you like Google or like find the dictionary, like look up at a dictionary of what the meaning of mosaic is, it will basically tell you that it is some sort of geometrical figures or extra dimensional figures which are basically art items, right? Something like paintings or something like aesthetic figures, like artistic features which are not abstract, but they have some sort of geometrical shapes, right? That is the basic dictionary definition of what a mosaic is. But in this context, you can roughly like redefine it by saying that it is something which adds elegance to the context, right? So what do I mean by that? Again, breaking it down, mosaic is some sort of paintings or wall paintings or decorative items or some sort of art items which are beautiful and decorative in nature. Yeah. So I'm hoping that's clear, Siddhant. No worries, Sahil. I'm doing good. I'm hoping you're well. Oh, Diwali is day after tomorrow, right? So anyways, like, thanks, Sahil. Same to you. In fact, happy Diwali, everyone. The classes start exactly at 6 o'clock, Sahil. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are for 12th standard students. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday for 11th. But the timing is 6 p.m. every day. Yeah. Okay, Siddhant got it. Cool. Okay, Gurvansh is here. He has a doubt regarding. Uh, I would say yes, Gurvansh, but you have to be very regular in whatever you're doing in this 1 month, right? Do as many practice tests as possible, revise your notes. If you have time, please just go through every, uh, what do you say, every page and every line in your textbook, right? Don't rely on external materials. The textbook is your only savior, right? So just go read the textbook very thoroughly, give it at least 2 3 times a read. Yeah, so if you do that very regularly without failing, yes, you can definitely get 98 99% in 1 month, Gurvansh. So all the best for that. I'm hoping you'll work hard. Yes, Sahil, we can definitely do a lot of revision sessions and then y'all will be back on track. Yeah, so don't worry. We can sort this out together, guys. Just chill, like don't take too much pressure, yeah, because at least for you 11th standard kids, these are not like board exams, right? So, I mean, that doesn't mean you'll have to like totally chill. Like, do read it, give your exams properly, but like don't stress out too much. Yeah. Um. Okay. So if that is it, then we can move on. Okay. Cool. Um. the we finished the last slide, right? Yeah, so here the Roman Empire, by contrast, was a mosaic of territories and cultures. So again, the same point which Siddhant was asking, right? Like, what is a mosaic? Mosaic in this context can also be understood in terms of a group or a collection, right? So group, collection, gathering, all of these binding factors. Yeah. So many cultures and territories, as I was telling you, they came together to form the Roman Empire, right? So that's the basic difference between Roman and Iranian empires. And another special feature about Roman Empire is that it is bound by a common system of government. It had just one ruler who is very, very powerful and is a monarch ruling over the entire Roman Empire. Right? So that's the, what do you say, like special feature of Roman Empire. Yeah. So regarding like what languages were spoken, right? Like as I was telling you, Spanish, Italian, Greek, Latin, English, Dutch, so many languages were prevalent in the Roman Empire. Yeah, because people were from different backgrounds, people had different languages and cultures. But for the sake of administrative convenience, right, there were only two languages which were widely used, obviously for convenience, especially in the administrative affairs. Number one, it is Latin, right? And then there's Greek. So these two are widely used for administrative purposes. But like locally, like in the households and all, various other languages were also spoken. Yeah. So again, like this Latin and Greek also, usually people in the eastern part, I said you right, like roughly imagine Roman Empire divided into east and west with the demarcation as Mediterranean Sea, right? So in the east, people usually spoke Greek, right? But in the west, for the administrative affairs, Latin was widely used. Yeah, so just remember that, don't get confused. It's Greek towards the east and Latin towards the west. I very frequently come across people who get confused between these two guys, so please don't get confused. It's Greek in the east and Latin in the west, right? So make a note of that. Yeah, so that's basically the language difference. And all of those who lived in the empire were considered as subjects of a single ruler, right? Who is the main emperor. Yeah, regardless of what language they spoke, regardless of where they lived in, whether they lived in a desert, whether they lived in a grassland, which nationality, doesn't matter. but all of them were equal to the emperor. All of them were considered as important subjects of the emperor, right? So that's again a good thing when it comes to Roman Empire. Sahil, yes, noted. You can ask me doubts whenever you have them. Yeah, I'll answer them. Okay, so guys, any questions still there? Because now I think we'll be talking about the polity of the Roman Empire, right? So I think polity is fairly easier, but till now if you all have any questions, just let me know. Okay, Ayushi says clear. Cool. Thanks, Ayushi. I'll quickly move on then. So with any empire, obviously emperor is the most important, right? Everything almost relies on the emperor. He's the most powerful person, or like the citizen in the empire, right? So just like that, in the Roman Empire also emperor played a huge pivotal role, very crucial, right? So the first of all of these big list of Roman emperors, the first and the founder, let's say, of Roman Empire is Augustus, right? Very important, remember his name. Yeah, his name is Augustus, and he founded the Roman Empire in the year 27 BCE, which is 27 years before the birth of Christ, right? And he called that empire as the Principate. Yeah, Principate, the spelling is here. So like obviously, like he was the sole ruler, right? Like he's the only person in power, he's the monarch, all of the power was within him, like whatever he says is the final word, right? Like real source of authority. But he did not want to call himself as an absolute ruler, right? But in fact he wanted to call himself as a leading citizen, right? Which is called as princeps in Latin. And why is that? Why did he do that? He did not want to call himself a ruler, but he wanted to call himself a leading citizen because he has so much respect for the Senate. Again, what is Senate? Senate is basically, how do you say this? Again, just compare it to the 21st century, right? Like in certain countries, I think in Britain and all, we have senates. Yeah, we have houses of commons, we have houses of lords, just like how we have Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha in India, where all of these ministers or a group of people gather together to make policies and all, to make laws. Just like that, in Roman Empire, sorry, in these regions, before the Roman Empire, there was something called as Senate, right? So a group of people used to gather, they used to make all these policies and all. So that was a republican form of government before the establishment of Roman Empire, right? But it started somehow losing its foothold, it started becoming weaker, Senate was finally dissolved, and then Augustus set up the Roman Empire, right? Even though it's gone, yeah, but still Augustus had so much respect for Senate, right? And that is why he did not want to call himself as the absolute and only ruler, but instead he called himself as the leading citizen, right? He wanted to show his respect to the Senate, which is previously a republican form of government. Yeah, so that's the basic concept here, guys. It's a little bit technical, but in case you all have any questions, I'll explain it in detail. Yeah, just let me know in that case. Okay. So, as I was saying, the Senate had existed in Rome for centuries before the establishment of the Roman Empire, right? It had so many, we won't call them ministers, but let's just call them a body representing the aristocracy, like aristocrats, who are basically all these wealthy people, rich people. Yeah, majorly they had Italian descent because Italian people were very, very rich back in those days, right? So these group of people came together, they formed the Senate, and they took all of the decisions, laws, or whatever relating to the republic. But once it's gone, then Augustus set up the Roman Empire, right? So most of the Roman histories that survive in Greek and Latin, like whatever sources we have right now, which are in Greek and Latin, they were in fact written by the senatorial background people. Like either senators wrote them or the family members of the senators who were well educated, who could read and write. Yeah. So all of these people compose different histories, and that is how we get so much information about the Roman Empire. Right? So which means that senators are very, very important. Like even after Senate is no more there, yeah, people who were the senators at one point of time, their families, their descendants, since they are aristocrats and they have a lot of money, they are still important, right? And usually all of these emperors like Augustus and his successors and all, they were supposed to show some kind of respect towards the senators. Yeah, so that was a very, very crucial features. Now what do we see here? King is important, agreed, but can we say that aristocrats were also important in the Roman Empire? Absolutely yes. Yeah, along with the king, aristocrats were also very, very important in the Roman Empire. Yeah. Okay, so any questions still here, guys, before we quickly move on to the next slide? Aishi has a question regarding the Menti quiz. Aishi, once we finish this chapter, this is just the first part of the chapter, right? So I think once we finish dealing with this chapter, then we can have a quiz, Aishi, if that works for you. Okay. I'll quickly move to the next. Cool. So all of these emperors, right? Like whoever these emperors were, if they showed some kind of respect on, or if they gave some sort of importance to the senators, they were considered as good emperors. But if they were hostile to the senatorial class, if they did not treat the aristocracy properly, then they are considered to be the worst emperors. Yeah, so just like best and worst, just like random use of words, but you get the content, right? So respecting aristocracy and senatorial class is very, very important. Yeah. So all of these senators, sometimes they did not like the emperor, right? Because if emperor is not treating them properly, then obviously senators did not like the emperor back. So in that cases, they like desperately wanted to go back to the republican days, yeah, previous republican form of government, but they know that it is impossible. Yeah, because they don't have the power anymore. They wanted the republican form of government, but they can't do anything about it. Going back is very impossible. Yeah, they knew that, but still they were desperate. So now we've looked at two important or two key actors of the Roman Empire, which is number one, the king or the emperor himself. Number two is the aristocracy or the senatorial class, right? There is another important category of people who are also important, right? So which is the army, right? Very, very crucial. Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about the army of the Roman Empire, right? So army of the Roman Empire was very, very professional, right? So they were very well trained, regular trainings, well paid salaries, good conditions of service, right? All of these were some of the features of Roman professional army. And if a soldier in the Roman Empire, like if he becomes a soldier once, then it is necessary for him to at least serve for 25 years, like minimum of 25 years of service, right? So that's a good thing because they're properly trained and they're professionals. But if you look at the Iranian army on the other side, they are not professionals. The soldiers are still amateur people. And the way that the soldiers were recruited is also not proper. They often use the method of conscription, right? So again, what is conscription? Conscription is, like forcibly recruiting people into the army. Like let's say I'm there. I don't want to serve in the army. But because I'm an Iranian and I am living under the Iranian king's protection, I definitely have to serve in the army. I don't have a choice. Yeah, it's mandatory for me. So, I mean, people obviously did not like it. Yeah, people did not like it because it's against their wishes. So that's again the next difference between the Roman army and Persian army. Persian army is nothing but Iranian army, right? So that's the difference. So the army was again largest single organized body in the Roman Empire, right? By almost 4th century AD, there were 6 lakh people or 600,000 people in the Roman army, right? It definitely had the power to determine the fate of the emperors, right? If they did not like the emperor, if the emperor is being too brutish or too monarchical, then the army can go against him, right? Because army is powerful. It had 600,000 people. Just imagine 600,000 people versus one emperor. Obviously, emperor would lose. Yeah. So if emperor is doing something bad, then his fate will be decided by the army, right? So that's that. I think Ayushi had something to say regarding the quiz being taken before 13th of November. Yes, Ayushi, that will definitely be done. So don't worry about that. We can do it before 13th. Cool. Any questions till there, guys? Also, I think it's almost time, but like just give me 5 minutes, I'll wind this up. Yeah. So these soldiers, right, who are a very, very important wing, they constantly asked for better salaries or better wages and better service conditions if they are not satisfied. Yeah. And their needs are often met, because what if they are angry or what if they are frustrated? Then they can revolt against the emperor himself. That is why emperor is always afraid of the soldiers, because they're very, very powerful. And whatever the soldiers demanded, like better salaries and all, emperor often fulfilled them. Yeah. So sometimes in the past, when emperor was not able to fulfill these requirements demanded by the soldiers, there were mutinies, there were agitations, right? So all of these like internal conflicts, civil wars. Yeah. So sometimes basically these mutinies used to happen when emperor does not satisfy the demands of the soldiers, right? So also, on the other hand, Senate people, like the senatorial class or the aristocrat people, even they did not like the Roman army. Again, there's a reason. Like, why didn't they like the Roman army? Because in order to maintain such a huge army, you definitely need a lot of resources and a lot of money, right? Because you need to pay the salaries. So, where is the money coming from? Actually, aristocrats were the people who were paying a lot of tax to the emperor. Yeah, that tax is being given to the soldiers in the form of salaries, right? So it's almost like taking money from the aristocrats and giving them to the soldiers. Obviously, why will aristocrats like it? Because they're losing their money. Nobody wants to lose their money, right? So that is why senatorial people often I won't say hated, but they disliked the Roman army, right? So that's the 3 important wings, which are the emperor, the aristocrats, and also the Roman army, which are very, very important back in the Roman Empire, right? So to sum this up, right, like these 3 are the main players, as I was mentioning just now. And the success of individual emperor depended on the control of the army. Like if he's efficient enough to manage the army well, then he'll be considered as a successful emperor. But if he is not able to do that, yeah, if army is not satisfied, then they'll break out in mutiny. Yeah, there'll be so much of unrest. This will lead to civil war. So much of like chaos in the empire, which obviously no one wants. Yeah. So again, to roughly speaking, like generally speaking, the first 2 centuries of the Roman Empire, which is the first and second century, right? They were relatively peaceful. Yeah, there was some sense of political stability. There was not much conflict and all going on, except for 1 year, which is 69 CE, right? This year was drastic. Yeah, because there were four emperors within the same year who tried to mount the throne in quick succession. Just imagine, within 1 year, 4 emperors changed. There's definitely a lot of civil war happening, right? So except for that 1 year, others were relatively like calmer and politically stable. Yeah. So again, usually when the emperor dies, it's basically from his own family that the next emperor comes up, right? Basically, succession to the throne is inheritance or descendancy, right? Either it's natural or adoptive, it doesn't matter, but it's definitely from within the family, right? We'll look at one example, right? For example, the ruler Tiberius, who ruled from 14 to 37 CE, right? So this ruler Tiberius, who just succeeded Augustus, basically, which means Tiberius is the second in the line of Roman emperors, right? He was not the natural son. He was not the biological son of Augustus, but Augustus actually adopted Tiberius, right? We don't know who Tiberius is, whether it's some nephew or within the family or orphan, we don't know. But for somehow Augustus adopted Tiberius, and Tiberius basically succeeded the throne, right? So even if it's an adopted son, it doesn't matter. Yeah, he can still become the emperor as long as it's within the family, right? So external warfare was also much less common in the first 2 centuries. Like the empire was already huge. Whatever empire the Tiberius has inherited from Augustus, it was already huge, stretching over these 3 large continents, right? Then there's obviously no need to even further go and expand its territories because it's already huge, right? So that is why external warfare was also very like they're not common basically. Yeah, they're not common in the first 2 centuries, right? So in fact, this Augustan age, it was referred to as a peaceful age, right? Because before the Roman Empire, there were a lot of conflicts, especially when the Senate was falling down. Yeah, there were a lot of conflicts. There was no peace, there was internal strife, centuries of military conquest. So after all of these chaos, Augustus was the first ruler who made sure that there was peace in the empire. So that's why it's the Augustan age is referred to as the peaceful era. Yeah. So overall it was peaceful, right? But there was one exception again, which comes in the year 113 to 117 CE, right? And during that point of time, the emperor who was ruling the Roman Empire was Trajan, right? His name is Trajan, the spelling is here, right? Trajan is again a very ambitious ruler. He wanted to conquer beyond the territory, right? He even wanted to conquer India, right? Just imagine where Europe is, where India is. So he is that ambitious. Yeah. So again, he tried to, but he couldn't do it. But because at least for that efforts he put in, a lot of battles took place, a lot of wars took place, but he was not successful. But so many rulers and so many soldiers died. Yeah, so that was the one rough patch, but other than that it was a peaceful age, right? So this is the last slide for today's class. We'll just look at what a historian by name Fergus Miller, in one of his books titled The Roman Near East, what does he talk about the Emperor Trajan, right, who was this ambitious ruler. So he says that in his book that in the winter of 115-116 CE, right, they were in Antioch. Antioch is a place in the Middle East, right? So there was a great earthquake happening there. Yeah. So that is why Trajan had to march down the Euphrates to Ctesiphon, which is the Parthian capital, right? And from there he even moved on to Persian Gulf. So while he was in Persian Gulf, he actually sees a ship, a merchant ship full of goods and all, traveling towards India, right? He sees that ship and he wishes that he is powerful and successful enough to conquer India, because obviously conquering India is one of his dreams, but he couldn't do it, right, because of no proper resources and all. Yeah. So he thinks to himself that probably he is as young as Alexander, who was successful in conquering the northwestern frontier of India. He thought that probably like he was as younger as Alexander so that he could conquer India, but he was feeling sad that he was not successful in conquering, right? So that's again a brief excerpt from Fergus Miller's book. Yeah. So that's Trajan. That's a little bit of political history of the Roman Empire, guys. So we'll continue this in the next class. But for today, that's the end, right? So we've come to the end of class for today. But in case you'll have any questions, just ask them in the chat box. Yeah, we can quickly answer them. Since it's already past time, I'll try to wind this up. But in the meanwhile, just type any questions you'll have, right? So regarding, okay, there's a humanities batch starting for class 11 students. It's basically a crash course types, right? So you can, the term 1 and term 2 syllabus both are covered. It's actually started yesterday itself. It already started, right? The duration is 3 months and the medium of delivery or medium of instruction is Hindi. So these are the educators who will be teaching different subjects. So have a look at them, have a look at their bios and go join them if you feel that you want to be a part of the crash course, right? So they'll be really helpful. And yeah, thanks so much guys. Thank you for tuning in. And finally, if you like the content of these videos, please do like it as soon as the live stream ends. And comment down below with any questions or suggestions you have. And also subscribe to the channel Unacademy and scholars in particular. Yeah. That's it we have for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. But in case you'll have any questions, just stay back. But if there are none, the class is officially over. Y'all are free to leave. That's all we have for today. Thanks so much again for tuning in. Thank you, guys. I'll just hang around for a couple of seconds in case anybody has questions. So yeah, if y'all have any, just put them in the chat box. I don't think I see any. I'm assuming that everything's clear, whatever we've talked till now. So on that note, then probably I will end the class. Yeah. So also like just a brief update information announcement basically. So it's the next class is usually on Thursday for you guys, which is 4th of November, right? It's basically Diwali that day. So we will not be having a class on Diwali, which is Thursday. So the next we'll be meeting is on Saturday, which is 6th of November, right? So basically I'll be seeing you guys after almost 4 days. till then, have fun, have a safe Diwali. Yeah, have fun, but be safe. Yeah, so I'll see you guys again on Saturday, guys. Bye till then.